Welcome everyone to another episode of BaconBeercan Flexes. And this is where I show off and review all the stuff I bought over the years. So our guest for today is this right here. Velvet and Cornelius from Odinsphere. This game was first released on the PS2 back in 2007 and was later remastered for the PS3 and PS4. It's developed by Vanillaware, who is well known for his beautiful 2D graphics, as you can probably see right now. The story follows 5 different characters with an intertwined story. In this type of storytelling, it's later revisited again in 13 Sentinels, but in a much bigger scale. If you're a fan of sci-fi mystery, I highly recommend you trying it. Back to Odinsphere. As you can probably tell from the figure, Cornelius and Velvet Hair are pretty close to each other, but as to what type of relationship they have, well, you're gonna have to play the game to find out. So this is manufactured by Alter. I mentioned this in my previous video that Alter, it's a really well respected maker in this industry, so rest assured, the build quality will be good. And if you're worried about the figure tipping over, don't worry. And as you can see, there's a lot of weight to the base, so this is not tipping over anytime soon. Some of you watching right now might be wondering if there's a chance the figure might break off from the base. Well, I got some good news for you. If you look over here and here, you can see those are the studs for the figure. They are really solid and got a good length to it too, so I'm pretty sure they aren't going anywhere. This was first released back in 2016 for around 14,000 yen, which translates to roughly $140 American. It's sculpted by Fukumoto Nonitaka, and of course, character designed by George Kamitani. And now, let's dive in and take a closer look. Alright, let's start with the headgear, which is one of the more defining features of Velvet. Okay, so we can take a look at the black part over here. You can see plenty of details over there in the sculpt, which is nice. The paint job is nice and clean too. And moving on to the hood, you can see a lot of folds in the cloth there. That gives it a really natural look. There's plenty of highlights there, so that is nice too. However, if you look at the stars, this is where you will notice some painting mistakes over there. They're pretty minor, but still a little disappointing. Next is her hair, which honestly I'm not a big fan of. I can appreciate the sculptor trying to make them look like individual strands, but to me they kinda look like a bunch of spaghettis. And on top of that, if you look at the paint job, well, let's just say it can be a little better. For comparison's sake, here is a different Velvet figure, and as you can see, the hair doesn't look realistic, but that's not what I'm looking for here. I just want something that resembles the source material, or the game in this case. Moving on to her body, first let's take a look at her sleeves. I think they might have went a little overboard with the highlight, but other than that, it looks alright, so I'm not going to complain too much. Next, we have the golden part here. That, I believe, is supposed to be a frilly fabric, so it's kind of weird. They gave it a metallic look instead. And one more thing I want to point out is that there is some subtle highlights on her skin, so that gave it a much more natural look, which is good. Moving further down, first let's take a look at this. Similar to the hood, there's a lot of folds in the cloth, so that gives it a nice and natural look. Paint job is also good, with plenty of highlights and shading. I also want to give props to the sculptor for the frills over here. If you look closely, each one of these, they actually look a little different. Moving on to Cornelius. His face looks fine, I like the sculpt, I like the paint job, but I got to talk about his hair. So this part, it's fine, it looks alright, paint job is good, but his ear, yeah, I don't know what happened here. Now, for the rest of Cornelius. His arm guard looks alright, it's got a nice metallic look to it. His body armor though, I am not quite sure about the paint job. Looks a little lazy here. So before I move on to the rest of the figure, I have to talk about this. So this thing, it's actually not PVC. I think it might actually be some sort of artificial leather. If you know what it actually is, let me know in the comments. And finally, we have the base here. Honestly, I think this is one of the better looking base I've seen. There are plenty of details around. The paint job is also really good. Some of you might think that there's too much highlight here, but I think in this case it captures the look of the game pretty well, so I'm okay with it. With all that out of the way, now it's time for everyone's favorite. Let's look for the seams. Honestly, I couldn't find any on Velvet. I've checked the usual spots, but no luck. So yeah, they did a really good job hiding the seams. Cornelius, on the other hand, there is a obvious one at a not so flattering spot. But other than that, I didn't spot any other ones. And this is it for the review. And despite all the flaws, I still love this figure. The sculpt is really good, and more importantly, this is one of the only way to get a good looking Cornelius figure. So if you're a fan of the game, I definitely recommend getting this. And how about this one, you ask? Well, I'm gonna have to save that for another time. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, go check out a podcast from this very same channel. I also stream on Twitch. Links will be in the description. And I'll see you all next time.